G'day, freedom lovers. How are we all today? We got a very interesting one today. We're going right back to the beginning of North Queensland Freedom Network, to a point where I just met Oliver and he introduced me to a lovely lady by the name of Deborah, who runs the Frog Hospital in North Queensland, or far North Queensland. If you go back to our earlier shows, and you look for this particular spot here, the Frog Hospital, all the way back in January of 2021, I believe it was. So, yeah, because it's been 2 years now that we've been running, and it seems only fitting that as we move into another year that we bring Deborah, and both Oliver is back as well. Here's another one we did, Frog Safe and Wind Farms. There's some really cool information in that one. If you go back through the North Queensland Freedom Network stuff, or Rumble, YouTube, YouTube didn't ban that stuff. It didn't have anything untoward. So we're going to try YouTube one last time this time. I was talking to a good friend, Tracy, who apparently has been cursing me a lot because I keep leaving the YouTube, and it's the only way she's been able to watch it. So we'll give it one last chance today. We'll try not to say anything or show something that's going to somehow upset their ridiculous fact checkers. But anyway, here we go. Oh, yeah, I will address one thing as well. On our last show, apparently we got a little, you have given fake information for showing this. So possibly because I recited it as well. But, at the end of the day, I don't know. Maybe he didn't actually say it. Maybe he didn't say it on that date. But I think actions speak louder than words. And his actions most certainly said this, in my opinion. So if I'm allowed to have an opinion in this wonderful world we live in today, I'd say that is actually quite factual based on the way that man acted. But it's not all about that. I just thought I'd correct that one. Let's move on to our wonderful guest. Let's bring in Oliver. G'day, Oliver. How are you, mate?
G'day, Mark. Yeah, good, man. Good.
It's been a while. Again. It's good to have you back on the North Queensland Freedom Network. And, I don't think our Cafe Locked-Out audience has met Oliver very, very much. He's had a few things he's needed to sort out, but hopefully he's coming back on board 2024.
Yeah. We'll see. Just crazy things always.
We'll see what happens, but it's good to have you here, mate. And we will bring Deborah into the show as well. G'day, Deb. How are
you? Oliver, where is your hair? Is it pulled back?
It's all here.
Oh, good. Okay. I'd be very disappointed if you cut it.
Oh, I'm never cutting my hair.
Actually, I had to cut mine. I took about 4 inches off because it's falling out like crazy. So.
Oh yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, no, I thought I'd try to be a little bit in more with the Mark uniform today. Mark's always got his ponytail, so I'm like, yeah, go for it.
It's just to hide how ratty and horrible it is because I just don't cut it. So anyway,
throwbacks to the 70s, right? We all got to have long hair.
That's it. I'm saving on scissors, razor blades, all those things, doing my bit for the environment.
Oh dear. Yeah. It's very kind of you to have me back. So.
No, it's great. This is the first time we've brought you into the Cafe Locked-Out crew. I think the North Queensland Freedom Network followers that have been following us for the last 2 years have well and truly know you. But for those on the in the Cafe Locked-Out crew, maybe we can give just a little bit of your background, Deborah, so that they know who you are and what it is you're all about.
Right. Okay. Let's see how succinctly I can do that. All right. So I've been running this thing called the Frog Hospital for 25 years now. August was 25 years. And we basically rescue sick and injured frogs from all over the place, wherever they can physically get to us. But we also do long distance advice to people anywhere in the country, because unfortunately, even after 25 years of doing this, there are still not very many people out there that really know what's going on with frogs. A lot of what's going wrong with the frog population is relatively recent in that prior to 25 years ago, it was not at all something that you would see. You would not see frogs with cancer. You would not see malformed frogs unless there was an odd fluke. You would not see frogs with flesh-eating disorders. So the sort of things that we have detected and documented in the frog population are things that people really don't know very much about, including people that study frogs. The academic community is not really onto this stuff. So we still exist. We get very little support. It's always been a struggle to run this group. We never have enough volunteers. A lot of people don't know what cubbyhole to put us in. We're not a wildlife rescue group, and a lot of people don't care about frogs. So it's always been a challenge. And I think one of the strongest challenges we face is that, technically speaking, we do not get any recognition out of government agencies at all. Anything we try to tell them about the frog population, they simply don't listen to us, despite the fact that I've treated over 3,500 frogs with assorted problems over the years. They don't consider us to be worth listening to, so they ignore everything we say. So that's one of the very difficult frustrations that I have to deal with in trying to get the word out about what's happening to frogs and why this is connected to our environmental degradation.
Righty-o.
Oh, and by the way, I don't have a degree, so that's one of the other things that gets thrown in my face once in a while is, oh, well, you don't have a degree. Why should we listen to you?
So obviously the community at large, or the governments in particular, seem to prize that piece of paper over your 25 years of experience.
I suppose, and I think also the other problem is that, in a way, what's happening to the frog population is opening a can of worms, because they really need to be doing a lot of toxicology work on not just frogs, but any wildlife disease issue that pops up. They really need to be doing toxo, and they don't want to do that. They don't finance toxo. They don't want anybody to do it. It's not part of the system. And if you want to pursue toxicology work on anything, you basically have to raise the money yourself to do it, because they won't pay for it. So they don't want people to reveal how bad the chemical situation is.
So obviously they've got a bit of a stranglehold on the piece of paper people, and they don't like the citizen science construct so much.
Oh, if you're counting things, they love that. But when it comes down to, yes, there is, because most of the funding that academics use to do whatever project they're working on, whether it's a lab project or a field project, that money usually comes from the government. So therefore, they do have a lot of control over what gets done or not done.
So you were saying, like earlier, we had a bit of a yarn just to make sure we could get all this functioning and whatnot. And you mentioned our lovely new state premier. I'm just calling him Palachuk too, because I can't remember his name, and I don't think he's worth remembering. I reckon he's going to be here and gone pretty quickly if the gods are indeed kind to Queensland. Not that I'm rooting for the Liberal Party by any means. I'm hoping for something a little bit bigger and better than both the same old Liberal Labor backwards and forwards that never gets us anywhere. But you mentioned that he'd heard of your work and that you do good work, and then you send him a letter outlining some issues. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh dear, I'm trying to remember which paper that was, because what I have found over the years is that if you really want to get an issue in front of a minister or similar politician, bureaucrat, whatever, don't bother sending them an email, because the minister is never going to see that. Everything gets deflected away from the ministers, at least in Queensland. I've heard it's different in other states, but up here, the ministers don't get issues directed to them unless the department decides to. So the only way that I can actually get an issue, hopefully in front of them, is to hand them a hard copy piece of paper at a meeting or a conference, that sort of thing. That doesn't mean they actually bother to read it, but at least it hasn't been deflected through the system. So there was, I can't even remember which paper that was, but somebody was having a meeting with him in Brisbane, and I gave them this document and said, when you meet with, he was environment minister at the time, when you meet with him, would you please hand him this document? And they did. And I said, what happened when you gave it to him? And he said, oh, he recognized your name right away and said, she does good work. And I just sort of thought, okay, why does he know who I am? Unless I'm on the list. Maybe I'm on the list. So I don't know, but I certainly never got a response to whatever it was that the paper was about. I never. This is it. I've handed papers to ministers before, and you never hear from them again. I've handed paperwork and photographs of cancer frogs and all that stuff. I've handed these hard copies to threatened species commissioners, and they look at the photographs and they look very upset about what they're seeing. You never hear from them again.
Well, it's interesting that in one sentence he says you do good work, and then he persists on not answering anything that you've stated. And I mean, I've written to plenty of people, in various different departments and whatnot over the years, and the deafening silence is absolutely astounding.
I'm noticing that more and more. A lot of the recent letters that I have been sending, I'm not getting responses at all.
Yeah.
Very rarely. So that might be their new strategy. If you can't address the questions being asked, don't say anything at all.
Yeah, I think there was actually a recent article I brought up last week's Fail of the Week, where the Albanese government has been accused of, I think it's 200 Senate inquiries he's refused to answer. So it's we'll take that on notice. And they've gone well and truly past their 30-day notice period, and they're just not answering questions.
Yeah.
So.
And the thing is, how do you enforce it? I mean, is somebody going to show up at their office and say, you have to answer this by 5 p.m. today or else I'll arrest you? I mean, there's no enforcement. You could tell them what you want, but who's going to enforce it?
Exactly. We need that accountability, and we're certainly not going to get that from a Liberal and Labor government who seems quite dependent on ensuring that there is no accountability and that they don't have to answer questions. They can do whatever the hell they want.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we've moved on, you've had a recent relocation. You had a bit of trouble back there. And we definitely want to thank the supporters out there that watched our podcast, reaching out for some community help, and there were some very amazing people that donated a few bucks there to help you move. In a time of crisis, you've sort of had to pick. Inappropriate location, you were saying. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, first of all, I will say thank you, Ollie. Very kind, very, very generous supporter who helped us with the move. He knows who he is. Thank you.
I thought you said Ollie. I was like, what did I do?
Someone who saw your video and helped us out with the move.
Oh, right.
That was absolutely brilliant because I had no idea how the hell we were going to pay for that. It was just, but yeah, I mean, we're poor. We rent in the private market. We've always had to rent in the private market. We've never been able to have a permanent location, and every time something changes, the property sells or the other problems that we've had. I mean, we moved 5 times because the property has sold, and we've moved twice because of fraudulent, criminal behaving real estate agents that were screwing us around and caused financial damage and lied to us, and we were sick of that, so we moved out. So we had to move this year. We were on a beautiful property, which actually you could see some of the property in the first video that you did a couple of years ago. Lovely acreage property, 300-year-old trees on that property. Unfortunately, the owner was not able to keep up with all the repairs that were needed in that property. It had been neglected for too long. The repairs were now too expensive, and he sold the property, and the new owner wanted to move in. The new owner was not environmentally friendly and started bulldozing the place. I haven't seen what it looks like now. I haven't gone anywhere near there. But, bought the house sight unseen, showed up on the day of closing and said, oh, well, we're going to blockade you in here. It's like, what? So to make a long story short, they were harassing us to get out before our lease was going to expire, and they weren't willing to pay us. They weren't willing to buy us out of the lease. So, and of course, it took months of searching for us to find anything. And we found out that one of the reasons why the housing crisis is so bad is because real estate agents are sitting on vacancies. They're collecting a dozen, 20 applications on it, and then picking out 3 or 4 that they'll give to the owner. So in the meantime, the property's sitting vacant for months. So there's a little bit of a racket going on up here with properties that are being rented. So we had a very hard time trying to find something else to take. And in the long run, we ended up having to take a house in the middle of Innisfail because that was the only agent that actually looked at our application and processed it and didn't collect, he wasn't about to wait 2 months for 20 applications to come in. He looked at the application, said, this is a good application. He contacted the owner. The owner said, yeah, okay. And we moved in 3 days later. We started moving in 3 days later. It took a while. So we're stuck in Innisfail for the time being. We have a lease to the middle of this year, but this is not, it's convenient. It's close to things, but it is an urban environment. There are no trees on this property. It's baked by the sun all day. It's 5 degrees hotter inside than it is outside. And thanks to the rain bomb that hit far north Queensland a couple of weeks ago, we got flooded. So we want out. But, finding something in our price range in the rental crisis situation that we have is going to be difficult. But we've started advertising because we can't stay here. So.
Hey, I'd just like to ask a question. So it was it's good to know all the things that's been kind of happening and get a bit of another recap, especially for people who aren't really aware of all the things that you've been going through, Deborah. But something that I reckon would be interesting to know is like what kind of ways do you think you'd be able to decentralize some sort of frog hospital network or get something like that happening? Because for those people who don't know, a lot of this is on Deborah's shoulders. Deborah's just about the only person, at least that I'm aware of, on the east coast of Australia that's doing this kind of frog work, which is really important, and we need more people doing this because frogs can tell us a lot about the environment and can show us all sorts of problems that seem to be arising within the environment in terms of the toxins and pollutants that are seemingly rife in our Australian natural habitats. So yeah, I'm just wondering if, because I know that you were also working on some sort of video series too. That's something that you've been trying to get going as well.
After we made the move in the middle of the year, one of the things I wanted to focus on for the rest of 2023 is running our training course. So I've designed my own 3 full-day rehab course for people, whether they're interstate or local, anybody. We really wanted to get training happening because, with the current situation, the public has lost their disposable income thanks to what I would consider to be unjustified interest rate rises, plus the inflation and the rental crisis. So donations are way down, and we have no idea how much longer we can actually exist. So I really wanted to get training happening at the end of this year. But there were some people interstate who wanted to fly up and get the training because it has to be here. We can't do that kind of work where you're looking for very cryptic clinical presentations on the animals. You can't do that with a webcam. You've got to be there in person and be able to have that hands-on experience with handling the animals or administering different types of treatments. But the people who wanted to come and do the course, it's very expensive for them to come up here between the airfares, the hotel, the course fee, meals. There's just so many expenses involved. So they all had booked tentatively, but they all had to cancel. A lot of them that want to come up and do the training can't afford to come up. And then even the locals, we could be training people in Cairns, but they don't want to drive to Innisfail. It's only an hour away.
Hey, can I just interject for a second there, Deborah?
Yes.
I have something to say. I was laughing not because of anything you were saying. Someone was saying, yeah, this. The frogs are gonna
Oh,
see.
were you reading? Oh, okay. You're reading some of the comments on
Yeah.
the screen there.
I wasn't.
Actually, there is another comment we should possibly address here. There is a strange clicking sound coming from somewhere. Do you perhaps, like, I can see you got a fan going there, Deborah. Is something maybe hitting a microphone or flapping there somewhere?
No. Okay, I've just covered up. I'm going to cover up my microphone. See what happens.
It stopped when you did that. Hang on.
Do you hear it again?
See, yeah, there it is. Trying to identify. It sounds like something, like a piece of paper or something flapping. You know, like.
No, I've got objects on top of pieces of paper, so they're not blowing anywhere.
I wonder if it's could have also a bit staticky. Maybe there's a dodgy connection somewhere. I'm not sure. So we might just have to deal with that for the time being.
Right.
I can't quite seem to figure out what's going on. But anyway, sorry. What were you saying, Oliver?
So I would love to train people, but the problem is that they do have to come to us to get the training, and people who want the training either can't get time off of work or they don't have the money to cover the travel expenses. We actually tried to do a fundraising campaign on an obscure site called Little Phil, specifically to raise money to actually provide a scholarship to people. We would cover, I think it was $750 of their costs to come and get the training. But I think the campaign now, it's been up for about 5 months, and I think the total amount of money donated to it was $54. So,
Oh wow.
so yeah, we're trying to be able to share that knowledge. Another possibility is to get a professional videographer and try to somebody who's got really good macro equipment and try to do a series of videos, sort of one task at a time. So there might be 30 or 40 videos in the process. This way people could watch it from anywhere, but we have to pay somebody to do that level of work. And I would estimate at least $10,000 to pay somebody to produce 30 to 40 videos. And they have to be here. They have to come to Innisfail to do the filming, and usually at short notice. So we don't know where that money's going to come from. We don't have it. We're just barely able to pay our infrastructure costs. So yes,
I know, maybe we can try and get a GoFundMe going. I could come and do the filming and set it up for you, but again, I've got a daytime job that I got to deal with, and it is a huge process and a huge undertaking, much like the Indigenous video I'm trying to work on too. Whenever I get time, I do these things. Well, we do have a question from the audience here. Is it true you should never touch or pick up a frog, as your scent will transfer to them and they won't be able to breed?
I would say no. There are other reasons why you would not want to just pick up a frog or a toad, and it has more to do with germs than anything else. Frogs' immune systems are not working so good anymore because of the chemical contamination. So frogs themselves have a variety of bacteria and fungi on their skin. So you wouldn't see that. It's all microscopic stuff. So by picking up a frog with your bare hands, especially if you had a cut or a puncture in your skin, you're picking up those germs. Another problem is the temperature. So frogs' temperature, toads' temperature is much cooler than us. So your body temperature is too hot to pick them up directly. So we recommend to anybody, if you're going to pick up a frog or a toad, even if it looks good, the best thing to do is to have either disposable gloves or even a plastic bag pulled over your hand to pick them up and move them. Just this way. And of course, another factor is that you touch so many things during the day, including things you wash your hands with or things you use to clean the house. So you could have residues on your skin that are bad to transfer to them. So basically, picking them up, having something over your skin, so that whatever germs they've got don't transfer to you, and whatever chemical things or salts or anything that you've touched doesn't transfer to them. But also the temperature is an issue. I just heard somebody else's voice in there.
It's all good. I'm seeing if I could find something to filter out that obnoxious noise that's driving everyone up the wall.
Yes, I don't hear it on my end.
Can you hear it, Oliver?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
All right. If you can't hear it, Deborah, it's on your end.
Okay, I'll try shutting off the fan to see if that makes a difference.
Maybe we can
Other than
see
that,
something that might be knocking it or
no,
knocking
the
something
fan's
around.
on the floor. It's one of those big commercial floor fans.
Yeah.
Nothing's moving around in here. I've already shut off the other fan that's on the desk. So let me shut this one off.
We'll see how we go. Right. So sorry about the noise, boys and girls. It's it is a bit frustrating, but
I know the sun's going down and it's down to 31
still
degrees
doing it.
even with the fan. So.
It's ASIO. You never know. You never know.
I would believe that.
Yeah, anything's possible. Anything's possible, eh?
So you still hear it?
It seems to have died down.
Oh, there it is.
No, it's not the fan. It's still there. I'm starting to wonder if we've got some sort of a technical glitch going on there.
Either that or it's the NBN. Because I'm looking at, okay, so on my computer, I've got a light that actually tells me when the computer is hooked up to a modem. And normally the light will, this is one of the downsides of the NBN. The light is mostly on all the time, but on a regular cycle, it goes off for a split second. Well, now that we're doing this, I'm looking at the light and it is constantly going off and on, off and on, off and on.
Rightio.
That's the NBN.
I think if there's nothing we can do about it, we'll just need to move on.
Yeah, I think we'll just have to live with it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Vapu says she can live with it, which is really good. Thanks, Vapu.
Yeah.
And we've got a comment over here from Freedom Phil, listening all the way from Twitcham. I'm not sure if that is actually a place or a joke. I just can't tell these days.
Is he in the UK? Is it Wigan? Is it Wigan?
I know, TWITCHAM. Twitcham.
That sounds like
Twitcham.
a UK.
Could be. You'll have to let us know, Phil. I'm looking. Geography was never my strong point. I probably rely on Google a bit too much these days to get me around from place to place. But
I'm pretty sure there's a place in the UK by that name.
It's environmental contamination causing endocrine disruptors and sex change in frogs. So we've got to address the Alex Jones quote that gets around quite famously. They're turning the frogs gay. So here it is. Is the environmental contamination causing endocrine disruption and sex change in frogs? Or is it simply that the government is trying to turn the frogs gay?
Okay, environmental contamination has been proven in the U.S. I believe the chemical that they studied was atrazine, which is an herbicide, and it absolutely does cause endocrine disruption and sex changes in amphibians. I don't believe that sort of work has been done here in Australia. As I mentioned earlier with toxicology, a lot of things that would prove what's going on with the environment generally are not funded. So it is possible. I mean, if we use atrazine in this country, so it is possible that that's happening. I haven't actually seen it in the frogs that come in up here, but it would be hard to tell for sure if they've been exposed to an endocrine disruptor, because all we see is that they are sick. But what caused the immune dysfunction in the first place is something we're not able to determine from the body.
Rightio.
Mm-hmm.
You said you had some photos, so we can show some of the people, some of the kind of issues that you're dealing with. Have you got something on hand there we can quickly have a look at?
Yeah. This is one of the photo albums I bring with me to conferences. Yes, that comment there I can see. Yes, there's a few things that are toxic. that are affecting the frogs. Okay, so hopefully these will show up okay on the camera. So this book is specifically the cancer book. So there we have
Here's a solo layout.
this guy. We actually have one of these in care at the moment. This particular cancer is called squamous cell carcinoma. We've had about 13 or 14 of them come in over the years, mostly from Cairns. Cairns has got a lot of this type of cancer. So a few more, whoops, I'm getting reflection, a few more of those sort of cases. We've actually had a total of 6 different types of cancer identified on far north Queensland frogs. And there's a couple tumor types that came in at times when we couldn't afford to get the pathology done. So here's another, where am I? There we are. Here's another type of cancer that's quite common as well. We've been referring to them as epidermal papillomas. They come in from a much larger geographic range. And we have had cancer cases come in. For example, we had one in October, I think it was. This was a squamous cell cancer, and it came in from WEPA. So thank you, Qantas Freight, for sending it to us. So we've had, let's see, what do we got here? This one in particular was from the northern beaches of Cairns. This is neoplastic glaucoma. So that was one of the new ones that turned up. And the other problem that we've seen, so a lot of these photographs show one particular cancer on the frog, but in the last year, we've started getting cancer cases in where more than one type of cancer is present on the same individual. So here was one. This one came down from Cooktown, quite a disastrous case. So he's got both squamous cell and an adenocarcinoma on this one individual. We've had up to 3 different types of tumors show up on the same individual. This one here is spindle cell sarcoma, and that one came in from just south of Mackay. It came from Blackwood, I think is the suburb. So there's certainly where the cancer cases are coming from is spreading, and the severity of the cancer cases coming in is increasing. So here's another one from North Cairns. This is a new type of tumor we hadn't seen before that came in this past year as well. So this is one of the reasons why we exist. A lot of people think it's a stupid idea to go out and spend money rescuing a few frogs that have broken legs or bacterial infection. So our work is not just about saving that individual animal, but it's about documenting what is actually going wrong with the frog population. If you ask academics or people in government, they'll say, oh, well, chytrid fungus is wiping out frogs, all over the place. And yes, it has done some damage. But we don't have problems with chytrid fungus on the far north Queensland coast. It's too hot for it. So why are the frogs disappearing if it's not chytrid? Obviously, there are other factors involved. So that's partially what our work is about, is being able to document what actually is happening to the frogs that people are finding. And cancer, unfortunately, is one of the really big ones.
I just want to quickly point out that Daniel's got some amazing jokes here. Frogs must be happy. It's a leap year. And he would also like to know if you operate on them.
I don't know. They go to the vet.
But there are some serious questions here. We have one. Would any of these cancers be fungal or parasitic in nature, or possibly both, I guess?
I think with from what I've been able to sort of analyze and surmise from the situation, I think that some of them are possibly viral in nature, but I think what they need, the virus might be there and it might be present in a frog, but the frog will not develop into a cancer case unless it has also been affected by a particular chemical. So I think you need both of those factors together in the same animal to cause the cancer. Cancers, in a way, are parasitic because they parasitize the body. But they're not parasites like you might be referring to, like a worm or a protozoa or something. They're a bit different. It's almost like a metabolic function that goes wrong and grows in a mutant fashion. I'm not a scientist, so I don't always explain scientific things quite the right way. Um, but I think in the case of the cancer cases that we're seeing, some of them could be viral in nature, especially that squamous cell carcinoma, the big giant tumor on the face. Apparently, that is a very common cancer in places like China. Uh, and in China, the human cases are actually caused by Epstein-Barr virus. Now, we certainly, a huge amount of the population all over the world has got Epstein-Barr. I've got Epstein-Barr. So that is one cancer that we know is oncogenic, so caused by a virus. But I think the virus would not be manifesting unless there was a chemical contamination affecting the immune system as well.
So another question here: is it very unusual for frogs to have cancers? Is there more is this more prevalent in the past few years?
Yes. The first cancer case we had come in was in 1999. We had two come in the same month, and the vet sent off a biopsy, and it came back squamous cell, and then we knew we were on the right track by existing in the first place. But it is rare for frogs to have cancer, but it is starting to pop up in different parts of the world. It's especially bad here in Australia and in far north Queensland. Um, Now, if it is related to chemical contamination, and we have our eyes on one particular chemical group in particular, um, then these cancer cases should be popping up everywhere that that chemical is used. But it can get complicated. It might be that more than one chemical needs to be present. Um, when you look at the use of chemicals in the environment, so let's take a cane field. So the farmers are spraying the cane field. They might be using herbicide. They might be using insecticide. They could be using anything that, well, they use antifungals. There's a lot of different chemicals that get used in the same physical location. But what happens during the wet season? So you've got all these different chemicals that are all based on certain concoctions. They're all used in the same place. And then when you've got rainy weather, all those residues mix and become an unknown combination. So it's like mixing bleach and ammonia. I mean, if a person did that, you'd die on the spot because the fumes would knock you off. But what happens in the environment with all these different chemicals that are mixing together to create unknown combinations? And then all that gets into the waterways, it washes down the creeks, the rivers, it's in the soil, and up here in far north Queensland, it all goes out to the barrier reef. So it could be that these cancer cases are only showing up when a certain combination of chemicals is present. And that might be depending on what you grow. So up here, cane and bananas is really big, and they are very heavy chemical users, both of those industries. Um, Whereas somebody that grows cotton might be using a different suite of chemicals that are not combining in the right way to cause cancer. So it's very complicated, and you need that detailed toxicology work, but you can't get that kind of work done in Australia.
It's sounding like a lot of what the problem or the obstacle or challenge is here is that a lot of what's happening to the frogs is happening to them because of all the they're catching all the downstream effects of industrial agriculture. So I'm wondering if you think, Deborah, that would be one of our key targets here of to look at in terms of being able to start to make a change in cleaning up our environment. Would it be not to find alternatives to really intense like agriculture that uses chemicals and all that sort of thing?
Yes, I think when you start talking about making changes to industrial agriculture, that's where you get into if you can convince the younger generation of farmers that going the chemical route is not the best way to go, that they should be going a different direction with organic or biodynamic or regen. Um, at least with the younger generation, I think you've got a shot. With the older generation of farmers who, my dad always did it this way, um, it is very hard to convince that generation that chemicals are not a good thing. They are well and truly hooked and addicted into using them. One of the chemicals that is causing a lot more problems, I believe, is a chemical called imidacloprid. And the cane farmers started to use imidacloprid, which is an insecticide. Uh, Back in 2008, up here in Queensland, they started using it. Now practically all of them use it. And they use it as a substitute for chlorpyrifos because the cane beetle has developed a resistance to chlorpyrifos. So now they're using imidacloprid, and it has been proven through water testing done by Topwater up at JCU Townsville that imidacloprid is actually going out to the barrier reef. It is shown up in all the water testing they've done up and down the coast. Imidacloprid is one of the neonicotinoid group of chemicals, which has already been proven overseas to disable the immune systems of a wide variety of animals, including bees. So that is what I believe is really the problem. Now, I've asked a local cane farmer that I did have a chat with. He was at least approachable. And I said, why are you using imidacloprid? And he said, well, I don't understand why, but it makes the cane grow faster. We'll never give it up. So trying to convince the older generation of farmers that you really want to stay away from these chemicals, they are causing damage to the environment. Um, it's very hard to talk to them. They just, show you the door. They hang up on you on the phone. Um, the younger generation is really, I think, your best chance in trying to steer them towards more traditional pre-World War II methods of growing crops. And it would give you a better crop anyway. I mean, the stuff that they grow in intensive agriculture has no mineral content left in it anymore. It looks like food. It might taste like food, but it doesn't have any nutrition anymore because the soil's dead. The soil's been killed off by all the chemicals that they use to grow it. And then they have to use fertilizer just to get it to grow because the soil's dead. So a win-win situation is to get away from chemical use. But I think with the older generation of farmers, you're going to have a tough time convincing them. It's really getting the word out to the younger people that are coming into farming or inheriting their parents' properties when their parents retire. That's my point of view anyway. I mean, I'm not a farmer, but I know they get very upset when you do start talking about chemical damage.
Must be too close to the truth. Doug here brought up an interesting point, and this actually takes us back to the first time I met you, Deborah, because in my mind I'm like, I don't know what kind of a person I'm coming across here. I know we're dealing with somebody who's dealing with the environment. Am I going to get a full-blown woke leftist or whatnot? And I was pleasantly surprised when you started spouting things about the geoengineering and all the other crazy topics that we discussed that day. I'm like, oh, wow, somebody gets it. This is awesome. So for the sake of Doug here, would you like to tell us a little bit about your thoughts on the geoengineering?
Yeah. Geoengineering is one of the most destructive processes ever created on this planet. It is being used in a reckless and malevolent manner. It is very hard to convince the public that it even exists, but the weather manipulation that they can do with it is profound. It is infuriating. It's and it is a very dangerous and biocidal type technology where you're spraying all kinds of nanoparticles into the air that come down and coat an entire landscape. Basically that's getting into our drinking water. It's getting into the crops. It's everywhere. You're basically just coating the landscape in nanoparticles. So yes, I know a lot of people don't think it exists, and if you try to talk to them about it, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. I don't have to listen to that.
Well, let's just squash that right now. Here's the Rainmaking Control Act of 1967, just to give a little bit of reality to those who would like to, say, oh, it's a crazy conspiracy theory. You can look this up on the Victorian legislation. And for those who go, well, that's just Victoria, you also need to be aware that, there are laws in place where if you get something through in one state, you can use it in others. So the fact that the Rainmaking Control Act of 1967 exists gives you a rough idea of how long they've been playing God with the weather, at the very least. So I think it's pretty hard for anybody to really say, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory, unless you really want to keep your head in that bucket of sand and you've dedicated your life to it.
Yeah, the cognitive dissonance, well, we've seen over the last 3 years with what's been going on. Cognitive dissonance is very big these days with a lot of people. And it's unfortunate. I did do, so for the bushfires inquiry, I did a joint submission with Frog Safe and a personal part of the submission. So the Frog Safe did some of the other topics having to do with why we believe the bushfires were so bad. And then personal section for me, I concentrated just on the evidence of geoengineering. So if anybody wants to go to the bushfires inquiry and just search for the Frog Safe Inc. submission and have a read, I had quite a few references in that submission of government websites that verify that not only does geoengineering exist, it has been used and paid for by assorted government departments in Australia. So have a look at if you got if you're interested and want to see some of those references. Just have a look at the Frog Safe submission to the it wasn't called the Bushfires Inquiry. It was the Royal Commission on Natural Disasters, I think was the formal name of that. Otherwise known as the Bushfires Inquiry. Have a read of our submission. I think that might sort of give people a bit more of something solid to base a revised opinion on.
So I've got something to say here. From what it sounds like, Deborah, you've been outlining a whole bunch of matters that are seemingly interconnected and very large at that, and very daunting too, if you're trying to think about how you're going to overcome them, right? And something I'm really interested in is understanding strategy and understanding the best way that we can affect change. And there's this one book that I've read quite a bit called The Art of War, which I believe there's a part in there, a chapter called Weak Points. And that chapter is all about understanding how to apply the most pressure, or rather just a minimal amount of pressure on a weak point. Then you'll be able to kind of collapse or overcome your obstacle in a much easier way. Rather than getting overwhelmed with the larger force, trying to overcome all that, like they say in The Art of War, don't besiege walled cities. That's like the worst thing you can do. Don't attack things head on, because you're just gonna, not really get anywhere. You want to find the weak points. So where I'm getting at with this is, have you, or does anyone here in the chat, have you, or has anyone here in the chat identified any like weak points in this whole huge, big dilemma with frogs, the environment, agriculture, government corruption? It's all a big knot of of corruption and silly things. So I just think about that. I wonder what would be something that would be a weak point in this whole schmozzle that's going on, right?
Yes.
And I suppose
it is difficult. I think I've heard people comment that it would be impossible to correct or change the system that is in place now, because it is too infiltrated throughout all segments of society. There has to be a way of going around them, You just ignore that system and you go to something else. But in reality, I mean, I'm not sure how exactly that's going to work either. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think there's certainly, I've met a lot of other people who feel very similar, that they don't like the way the system works now, that the system is not working for the benefit of anything except wealth transfer and power mongering. But how do you change it? Because you've got to have some kind of system to sort of organize things and protect people. But obviously, the system we have now is not it. And it's like, how do you get around it?
I have also read that sometimes the simplest ideas are the most revolutionary ones. And so I'd be wondering, and I'm keen to ask you what you think are the simplest things that we can do to address some of those things that seem to be affecting frogs.
Okay, people can certainly do things in their own backyards. We mostly have control over that. People might be able to influence their neighbors. So sometimes it's a matter of just trying to share a bit of education with somebody when when you've got an opportunity and they're listening to what you have to say. I mean, that's one of the problems with education. You try to tell people what's going on and they just, shut the door in your face. They don't want to hear about it. But if they're receptive and they're willing to at least hear the other side of the story, then you might be able to convince other people in your neighborhood to do some of the same things that you're doing in your backyard. You can expand it into your neighborhood. It would be nice if people were more activist oriented. And in saying that, I'm thinking about the EMF situation. So that's something we also haven't discussed yet, which is another big picture item that I think is, again, one of the most destructive technologies out there. I know people are absolutely addicted to their smartphones and you can't convince them to give them up. But, I still use one of these little things. It serves a purpose. I don't need a smartphone. I don't want one. So in trying to convince people, even if you tell them what's happening or that a process is destroying the environment, they can't hear it. It's like, well, what am I can't give up my smartphone. So it is very, very tough, really. But I think personal action is a good starting point.
Yeah.
Doing things that are good for the environment in your yard, reducing waste, etc. There must be are there some more comments coming up?
Yes.
Some of them are fucking hilarious. Like, Richo here, we need to plant more frogs, and Sue seems to agree.
Yeah.
Got to have a good joke in there once in a while.
Yeah. I actually, as you were talking, Deborah, like even before that comment, I was actually going to bring up how we can use humor in some of these things. And I just, an idea struck me about the gay frog stuff, like, because another really key part in political strategy is to create contradictions, because that's what makes people think, right? When you get, left and right, probably the worst sides of the left and right contradicting each other, people start to really think. And what came to my mind was, imagine if there was a group where it looks all nice and fluffy and shiny and like a lot of the activist groups are, portray themselves to be. And it's like, I'm just picturing like a frog with like the gay flag thing, like that flag. And it's like gay frogs, but it's like the actual organization is about like, preventing, like helping gay, like the frogs.
But I think some, you're,
and it's like, and they would talk about like EMF stuff, and you'd get all like the leftists like going over to that page, like, because it looks all shiny, and like, oh yeah, it's a frog with a gay flag, we'll click on it, we'll like it, yeah, the environmental. But then you'll start talking about EMFs and geoengineering, like that's an idea.
I think the humor is certainly an interesting aspect, and what comes to mind when you were talking about that is the cartoon series that Pauline Hanson has done. I mean,
right.
Which I bloody inspired.
Yep.
Yeah, you gave her that idea.
Yeah, I did. I got the photo of the day I told her too.
Oh, okay. But that was an excellent, something like that is really excellent, because it's introducing a topic in a sideways manner, where you're using humor, but there's something serious inside that humor, and it just gets people just even mentioning EMF or geoengineering in a cartoon series or a series of memes. It at least gets people to mentally accept that that exists. They may not know much about it. They may not realize that when they're looking up in the sky and there's the damn chemtrail going by, they may not make that connection, but at least hearing about it gets it into the brain that, oh, yes, I've heard about this EMF stuff. Oh, you mean they were serious? That wasn't a joke. So I see your point, but somebody's got to create it, obviously. I don't have the money or the resources. But
I've got the skills, I have the equipment. What I lack is the funding to be able to dedicate the time needed to do it.
Yeah.
And we are approaching the 1 hour mark. So I'll just for those who are watching on Instagram, you guys can comment, by the way, too now, I believe. That's not the right. Yeah, go to the link tree in the description if it cuts out, and come follow us on one of the other channels. I believe Twitter fans, you guys should be able to comment as well. People who are watching us on Twitter, chuck us a comment. I want to see if it actually does come up. They did say today that it is now a feature and it is functioning. I did see something a little bit further back, a couple of shows ago, where I seen a couple of Twitter comments come up. So it'd be good to see if you guys on other channels are able to sort of comment. I know you poor buggers in Rumble world are still. I am looking and checking every now and then. I'm just not seeing any comments, but feel free to chuck a few comments in, my Rumble friends, if you want to partake in the conversation. I do have a look from time to time, but yeah, I'm guessing this may cut off any minute now if you're in Instagram world, because I believe there is a 1 hour limit. So you'll have to come over and check us out elsewhere. But yeah, anyway, back to what our friends are showing.
How many people are actually, well, I guess you've got different platforms, so it's hard to know how many people are actually listening in.
On the Cafe Locked Out Rumble crew, we're looking at what was 103, then it was 95, now it's 94. There's a few going up and down there. And then there's another 10 over here on the other Rumble channel there. We've got 54 apparently being registered here. I'm guessing they're Facebook viewers. I don't know. Instagram is just such a painful website to deal with. I can't actually figure it out, to be honest. Have a look at some lives there. We got another 7 over here.
While you're looking at numbers, I want to comment. So I can, now that I've clicked on comments, I can actually see only the Facebook comments. And Jason has mentioned somebody about, I don't know who Hoodie is, but I think an earlier comment mentioned Hoodie is a pilot. Pilots will not talk about geoengineering. They have been
Hoodie was a part. Hoodie's a big part of the movement here. He pops on Cafe Locked Out every now and then. Actually, there is a thing where Hoodie come out and said, look, as a pilot, he wouldn't spray that. And he used to sort of make a joke to his missus, I'm flying over at the moment, quick look up and you'll see us. And then there'd be a trail sort of coming out. And, that is obviously was a contrail sort of thing. There are contrails. We have to acknowledge the existence of contrails. I am personally of the belief, from my observations, when I see the chemtrails, they tend to be flying a lot higher and not on a standard public sort of flight path. So I dare say, if there are pilots doing it sort of thing, they're probably under contract and they're not necessarily flying a passenger liner sort of thing, That's my theory on it, though.
Yes, I will say, though, that passenger planes have been spraying those. It's usually a certain type of plane. It's usually the Airbus 330s that do that. I won't say which airlines in particular I've observed, but yeah, I understand. Remember when that plane went down? Was that MH370, the plane that went down over the Indian Ocean? And there was all sorts of discussion about, well, what happened to it, blah, 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 whatever. And there were comments that actually planes can be taken over remotely. So if that's a true statement, a plane could be spraying in a particular area, and the pilot may not know anything about it. So, unless that can be clarified, or somebody sort of says, well, yes, okay, yeah, they can do remote, yeah, whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered about that. For example, if a plane is flying over Australia and it's spraying and it's not even landing in Australia, whose jurisdiction is that? Whose responsibility is that? Who made that decision? Why that area? Why that plane? It's not even landing in this country. So does that have anything to do with
the Chinese have an airfield out in WA? Who knows what's going in and out of that? And they've got the docks in Northern Territory, so they could be bringing anything in through the docks from the Northern Territory, running it out to their own airfield and doing God knows what. As far as I'm concerned, it's a major national security issue.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, it's so I mean, from our point of view as a group that's trying to find out why frogs are declining, there are issues that need further investigation, but certainly, us as a small group, I mean, we hardly have any volunteers. We don't get any formal recognition anymore from the government. The workload is far beyond what I can ever possibly deal with. In fact, since we moved to Innisfail, I mean, it might be a nice place for people to live, but it's a black hole for us. We have no regular volunteers in Innisfail at all. So my workload just keeps falling farther and farther and farther behind. And now we have to look for someplace else to go before this lease ends. So, these are issues that I know need to have very concentrated, proper investigation. But who's going to do it? Yeah. We know it needs to be done, but we don't have the resources.
I think it's a bit of a call out to the community of, a couple of hundred people we've got watching live. And, I know that there'll be several thousand over the next day or two that will tune into these podcasts, This is where we need people to sort of really step up and start helping. It's great that people are watching and that they're getting informed and learning and whatnot. But, we need a little bit more money where the mouth is, even if it is just a little donation or, joining my Patreon would certainly go a long way for me being able to assist in a great many other things. But, there's so many things that people can get involved in and help out and, do some research of your own and bring it to the channels. There's so many things that need to be done. And as you were mentioning earlier, we need an alternative system to come into place. And I know there's some groups here in Townsville that are working on that. I had a very interesting gathering with my friends today, who I know a couple of you guys are watching. G'day, how you going? I will be very careful about what we say because we have some important things that will be revealed over the next few months in the works on that notion. But you hit the nail on the head. We need to start getting things in place. We can't just go, oh, that's it. We're getting rid of the government. We've had a gut full of all this lot. We need to get rid of them. We need something else to set in motion at that time. So people have got to start stepping up and going, right, who wants to do something? Who wants to go, all right, cool. We need a better legal system, for example. Maybe you want to get involved in a common law group. We need a better political structure. So we're going to need some people who are, willing to step up and be those political people. Oliver and I have stepped up and gone, hey, we're going to do this North Queensland Freedom Network thing and get some decent news out there and, track down stories and find awesome people like Deborah. That's kind of our mission and what we've tried to do as best as we can. Hey, we've got a YouTube comment. G'day, how you going, Corey? It's good to see a different comment coming in.
So we didn't get cut off by YouTube, huh?
No, we're still running on YouTube. Amazingly, apparently the chemtrails and all that sort of stuff are okay. Just don't mention certain other medical treatments.
Yeah.
So and yeah, we did get cut off the other day from for the UFOs. We were allowed to talk about UFOs, but we weren't allowed to use Channel 7's stuff. So who it's not like we claimed it as ours. I didn't say, hey, this is our footage. We said this is an interview from Channel 7. We acknowledged who they are and what they are. We just wanted to talk about it, but that upset YouTube. So I think I heard earlier today that all the mainstream media were getting upset at AI as well. Like Microsoft and their AI and the Chat GPT and all that, they've just been using anything they can get off the internet to educate AI, and now the mainstream media are going at them for a copyright breach. So I can only assume that perhaps that's why YouTube's doing what it's doing, is because the mainstream media are just we've got to hold on to what little we have left. They've lost their viewer base. They've lost all their audience. Nobody's buying their bullshit anymore, physically paying cash, that is. Obviously nobody's buying the narrative they're spinning either. So I guess they're doing everything they can to maintain their own survival. But I think from my point of view, I'm seeing the whole system itself sort of doing that. The government's fighting for its survival. The medical industry's fighting for its survival. They've just wronged everybody so badly now that nobody trusts or wants to play with them, which gives us the perfect opportunity, people, to step up and take the reins, kick the dog while it's down.
Yeah. I should also mention, which I probably should have said something at the beginning, I always forget. For those of you who are listening, everything that I say is my personal opinion. Even though I run the Frog Group, that doesn't mean that the Frog Group members agree with what I say. They might, well, a lot of them sort of think that the global warming thing is real. I don't. So just to remind people, these are my personal opinions. So the Frog Group should not be held responsible for what I have to say. So my official disclaimer. So, but I forgot about that earlier.
That's it. Hopefully, we're still allowed to have our own opinions.
Yes.
Excuse me. If Albo and the Labor government get their way, they probably try to silence us very shortly. They've had a couple of cracks at it, been knocked on the head each time. So hopefully it stays that way. But is there? So how long have you got on that lease again? Or is it you got 6 months until you got to get out, or hoping to get out more to the point?
Yeah, we have to find something by May. I mean, I'm hoping that we find something earlier because being here is, one of the issues that we never anticipated in this house is the heat factor in this house. We've already had to rearrange the entire inside twice to try to get the frogs into the coolest part of the house, which is still in the low 30s during the day. But it's a lot better than the back of the house, which is an absolute oven. So we hope to find something sooner. It'll probably be on the tablelands, and we would very much like to be back on acreage. Being in the middle of town just doesn't suit us, and doesn't suit me anymore either. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens. We're just spreading the word at the moment. We do have an advert on Gumtree in the property to rent section under real estate in Gumtree, and that because we do have criteria. I mean, as an environmental group, we have to be away from toxic things, and toxic things includes mobile towers. So there are criteria there, and obviously that's going to limit the search quite a bit. But all we can do is put the word out and hope that some landowner who's sympathetic to what we're doing says, yeah, I've got a property. Yes, it meets your criterion. And no, I'm not going to gouge you on the rent. So we hope that something will come along, but it is a needle in a haystack, basically, especially on the tablelands where it's very much a checkerboard arrangement. You could have this beautiful national park, and next door to it is industrial agriculture. Or you can have a land for wildlife property who's next door to a guy that does aerial spraying. So it's very hard to find truly environmental properties that are affordable, because the prices up here are going way up as well. There is actually a really fantastic environmental property at Butcher's Creek, which is on the tablelands at the foot of Bartle Frere. The price of the property is down to 900,000, but it's 168 acres, and it's got a lovely 4-bedroom house that would suit our work very nicely. Our own rainforest to take people through walks through the rainforest to see the wildlife and the frogs. Very much away from industrial agriculture. There's a little bit of cattle in the area, but cattle raising is not that bad. Yeah, $900,000 is still a lot of money. So fat chance we'll find somebody to buy it. So,
Yeah, let's see. We only need $1 million.
yeah, yeah.
I wish I
The
had it.
people who have the money are not interested in conservation, and the people who are interested in conservation don't have the money.
Certainly seems to be the way, as I say, they're definitely within, the standard freedom movement too, just not enough money really. A lot of good hearts, a lot of good ideas, a lot of people, desperately trying to do something, but we just don't have the funding. And again, on one of the, I think it was not last week's fail of the week, it would have been the week before, I had a look at how much money was being pumped into various, greeny, climate friggin' organizations. There were several of them, and then millions and billions of dollars are being pumped into these ridiculous campaigns. I don't know where the hell most of this money is going, probably into brainwashing mostly, but if we had a tenth of that coming towards what we were trying to achieve here in the freedom movement, we could probably just about take over the system and put a decent one in.
Yeah, it's a problem. This whole emphasis on particularly industrial wind facilities reminds me very much of the animal rights movement, because when I lived in the States, I used to be involved in animal rights, and the same type of mentality was there, that nobody ever questioned. Like, for example, if you're talking about the statistics of how many animals are actually used in lab research for testing, cosmetics and crap like that. Uh, Somebody would add a 0 to the end of the number and think nothing of it, and nobody would ask any questions. So I see a lot of that. It just sounds very much like the present green movement, that despite how destructive wind facilities are, and the fact that they're not helping the environment, they're still blindly promoting them. And they don't want to listen to arguments that there's a problem with these things. I actually sent a letter to Chris Bowen. I'm just going to bring up this. I'm not doing it as a screen share, but I'll bring it up on my screen. And I was talking about how unenvironmentally friendly a wind facility is. So the first item I had in the list that I sent to Bowen said, first of all, more mining. So all the mining that we do now that supposedly is the Greens think is bad for the environment, well, they're going to have to do a lot more of it because of the rare earths and lithium requirements for this stuff. Then the mining uses fossil fuels. The manufacturer of the wind facilities uses fossil fuels. The transport of the components for the wind farms uses fossil fuels. So why are they're not getting rid of fossil fuels, because you still need fossil fuels to produce them. Limited shelf life, so something that only lasts between 10 and 30 years, and then you dump it in the environment. It'd be nice if they could recycle them, but apparently that's not happening very much of the time. Dumped in landfills. It's only a tiny feed to the grid. So here we are promoting all these electrical things, electrical cars, getting rid of gas. We're going to shut down the coal-fired power stations. We're going to have people using more and more and more electrical devices, including the 5G requirements of what they're going to need electricity to run the 5G stuff. And wind farms are going to they're going to produce all that demand? No, they're not. Fragmenting the habitat, they're chopping down forests next to the World Heritage Area to put up wind facilities. That's not environmentally friendly. And then, of course, once you actually build the stupid things, and then basically they're just giant blenders in the sky that are going to chop up anything that tries to fly past them.
Yeah,
Why is that environmentally friendly?
nothing environmentally friendly about it. It's absolute madness, and especially when you come to realize that we're getting all these things from China, and in order for China to continuously roll out all this green tech, they're putting up coal-fired power plants like they're going out of fashion.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we're strip mining Australia for the coal to send over there. It's I don't get it.
That Australia has to kill our economy to put up all these stupid facilities, but yet when you look at the global output of what is it that Australia outputs into the atmosphere compared to China and the United States, we're putting out this much on a global scale, and they're putting out this much on a global scale, but we're the ones who need to kill our economy to reduce this much of the atmosphere. That's if carbon was a genuine problem, which it isn't. Yeah, it's it's infuriating. Really, when you sort of look at what's going on out there, and if you know what's going on out there, it's that I can understand that expression, ignorance is bliss. Certain people who know me have even suggested, they've just come out and said, can't you just take the blue pill, Deborah? And it's like, no, you can't do that. Yeah.
Trying to find it.
I know what you know, but if you do know, knowledge seems to carry a lot of responsibility about it.
Oh yeah, it's hard to turn it off once you know, and
yeah, you can't unsee what you've seen.
Here it is.
Are there any questions that people have before we run out of time?
Well, as far as time goes, is that a sound? Oh no, there's some sort of technical glitch going on, mate. We've discussed it many a time. We're not sure what's causing that bloody sound. Some suggested it might be ASIO.
Yeah, the other one, the Signals Directorate. Let's see what else we got.
I can suss that out. So, anyone got any questions for Deborah about frogs, the environmental, connections and whatnot?
Oh, I like Mothman's question there.
It's a good question. I think you're going to need some pretty heavy duty stuff because they're massive friggin' things.
How about a bazooka?
Yeah, it could be a way to go. We're going to cause a forest fire in the process, though. If the wind farm doesn't catch fire and cause a forest fire in the meantime.
Well, most of the 5G towers are not in the forest because the higher the frequency you go, the shorter the range. So 5G stuff is all in the urban areas. 5G out in the regional areas is useless because it just doesn't broadcast far enough.
Yeah.
So that's why they call them small cell technology. You've got to be close to it. So yeah, they wouldn't start a forest fire, but it might burn down a few houses. Let's see what else we got. Oh, Tesla car. Does Deb Jennings mean use the Tesla cars to run into the 5G towers?
Use the Tesla cars.
Okay, Victoria has asked a good question there. Okay. Record them as in recording the calls to get them identified. Is that what you mean, Victoria? No, we're waiting for a response from Victoria.
Yeah.
If so, there is the Australian Museum has produced a free app that you can get on your phone, and you can use that to record frog calls and then transmit that to the museum through the app, and they will come back to you with an answer to say what frog calls you actually recorded. So that is if you do have a smartphone, a lot of people do have them. If you've got a smartphone, you can download the Frog Call app, and then you can start using that to record anywhere you are. and the phone will actually send the GPS location along with your recording of the calls. And they'll come back to you in a couple weeks with an answer.
I just thought while we're talking about wind farms, we'll just have a live look at what's going on. And it's amazing. I've never seen this much red. So we've actually got some fully utilized ones for a change here.
Okay. Well, certainly down south, they've had them for a while, especially in South Australia.
Generally, they're in this green sort of a look, but I guess they must be getting a bit of wind at the moment because we've got yellows and wow, red. That's almost like I've never seen so much red. You know, Hobart's getting a little bit of action going on. But as you come up here to, you know, here we're not very much a windy area. So it's usually in this sort of a scenario, unless there's a cyclone coming.
Yeah. The Victoria had a follow-up question. So I think recording the calls, the information does tell the academics where species are located. So as far as conservation goes, for example, there might be a particular location where they think a frog is gone from that area, and somebody sends in a recording, and they can see that, no, that frog still exists in that area. But I've always wondered whether or not just sending in the frog calls does help conservation, because, for example, a frog could be sick and still call. So the calls do not tell you the status of that population. They don't tell you if the animals are healthy. They don't tell you if the animals actually succeeded in reproducing themselves. Just because they're calling doesn't mean they produced a clutch of healthy eggs. So I think some people do consider that the information about the locations of frog calls is important for conservation. But from my point of view, dealing with animals that are sick and hatching failures and mass die-offs of tadpoles, to me, the calls are not really helpful because they don't really tell you the status of that population or whether it's healthy or whether it bred. But some people consider the calling information to be very important. It depends on what the information will be used for. For us, it doesn't matter. Oh, Scotland. We have somebody from Scotland in here.
We get a few from all around the world. Our Scotland friends have been pretty keen lately.
And the weather in Scotland
weather as usual.
Harsh.
What I hear.
Yeah, very. I've heard the weather in Scotland is definitely not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah, I think it's a good reason my family left there a long time ago. Yeah, it's still too cold for me, so I left Victoria and came to North Queensland. I have no desire to return back to those sort of places. But this is actually an interesting one that Michael's brought up. You know, the frogs getting sick from Bill Gates' mosquito release. Now, we did have a genetically engineered mosquito release here in North Queensland a few years ago. Were you aware of that?
Was that? Oh no, that was that the Wolbachia issue with the dengue mozzies. Was that the Wolbachia?
It was about 5 or 6 years ago. I remember I was working in the lamestream media at the time, so I haven't pulled this little thing out in a minute. I better drop this out just quickly. Another tale from the dark side, back when I was working in the lamestream media. So, yeah, I remember we went to the story and I freaked out instantly, you know, when I heard they were going to release genetically engineered fucking mosquitoes. And then I realized, hang on, they'd already fucking done it. And they were apparently, you know, in order to try and bring numbers down. So they'd engineered them in some manner to stop them breeding. Which, again, I thought, this sounds really, really dangerous. So they've introduced something into the mosquitoes to, you know, stop them breeding in some fashion. And then they're supposed to interbreed in with the rest of the ones in the wildlife and, you know, stop them breeding. And the first thing I thought of is, I wonder how that's going to affect humans that get the mozzie bite. I wonder how that's going to affect animals who are eating them. And as I understand, frogs eat insects. Do you think that could be a contributing factor to some of the things we're seeing?
Well, first of all, frogs will eat bugs that are appropriate to the size frog. So the only frogs that are going to eat mozzies would be metamorphs. So tiny little things. The well, yeah. I'm not so sure whether genetically modified mozzies are going to have all that much impact on the frog population. I think the chemicals and possibly the EMF is probably much stronger effects. But I did want to mention when you were talking about that, CSIRO used to do some genetic work. This was the I think we still have that page on our website, actually, in the cane toad section of our site. There should be a page about the GMO that CSIRO was working on, where they wanted to introduce a gene into the cane toad that would actually stop its tadpoles from metamorphosing. And that was going to be their biological control of the toad. And they were using the virus that was going. So let me back up. So in order to get this modified gene into the toad, they were going to use a virus as the transmission mechanism. And the virus would have been an aquatic virus. I actually went to the special workshop that the government convened in Brisbane in 2004 on the biological control of the cane toad. I was the only non-government, non-academic person there. And at that time, they had not revealed which virus they were going to use as the transmission vector. And I asked that at the workshop and was told, well, yeah, we're going to use boliovirus. Oh, that's a really stupid idea. But it was interesting. That project actually got canceled by Kevin Rudd when he came in. I think it was 2007. But the same concept was there. We're going to introduce genes into this thing, and when they reproduce, they're going to vertically transmit this modified gene, and it's going to solve all our problems, blah, blah, blah. And the thing is that we already had the situation what they were doing with rabbit viruses. So they had the myxomatosis virus that they developed and modified, and the Callici virus. And both of those viruses have left Australia and they've turned up in other parts of the world, where now those countries are trying to come up with genetic means of stopping those viruses from killing their rabbits. So this whole biological warfare thing is such a stupid waste of money. It goes back to the Jurassic Park movie. Just because your scientists could doesn't mean that they should. And thankfully, Rudd canceled the project on economic grounds, but it was beneficial that he did cancel it anyway, because that was the direction they were looking at, was modifying genes that's going to solve a problem. Oh yeah, that figures.
Sounds quite some time ago. Thanks, Michael, for bringing that up. I thought I'd have a quick look at that one. So Mosquito Test Project wins 100,000 Gates Foundation grant.
Yeah.
When we click into it, unfortunately, it doesn't go any further. It just comes to School of Chemistry and Molecular Bioscientists. So I love the way these links do that shit. Oh, click here to find out more, and it takes you to this. Like, that doesn't help us. So, I mean, given that it was back in 2015, it's like pushing 8 to 9 years ago, there's a good chance it just fell flat on its face, and that link has just gone dead to this at this point.
So UQ. Okay.
Might have to look a little bit further into that one.
Yeah. Do you know that Gates got permission to actually test out his GMO bananas just west of Innisfail?
Really?
I went for a drive just to look around the local region one day. I go for a drive, and I come across this banana farm that's completely surrounded by barbed wire. It's like,
wow.
Oh, that must be where he tested his bananas. Because you don't see that up here. I mean, you drive past a banana farm and there might be a little sign saying "Do not enter, biosecurity risk." Nobody bothers to enter anyway. I mean, but they don't fence themselves off. And this thing had a 7-foot fence with barbed wire all the way around the facility. But he got, I mean, counsel, obviously, I don't know who gave him permission, but he just tested, these things are tested in the open environment. How can you
Yeah.
contain something? You're testing a GMO in the open environment. How can you possibly contain it?
Mm.
It just
You can't.
goes off, I mean, just no intellect about these things. They
Yeah. Well,
sorry.
you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure these things out. It's common sense, And especially, going back to the old Monsanto stuff from ages ago, I remember looking at the way they changed laws, in order to speed the process up, like they were supposed to have like a 50-year period of proper testing before they even went anywhere near the environment. And they sped that up to, I think it was like 15 to 20 years or something, they cut it right back. And then they start throwing it out in the environment to test it. And it's like, well, you've done the damage by that point. You're not really testing it. You're just absolutely, you're implementing it.
Yeah.
It's utter madness. Utter madness. I can't believe it's allowed to happen. But obviously, a lot of money, gets changed palms here and there, and that's all they need. More money.
Yes.
So, is there anything else in the world of frogs you'd like to share with us as we move into the 1.5 hour mark?
Yes, I think one of the things that does come to mind is if people can, well, first of all, any frog that is sitting out in the open in the middle of the day, could be on your patio table, on your lawn, on the footpath, just someplace where you think, gee, that's a funny place for a frog to be sitting during the day. Even if it looks good, that frog has got issues and it needs help. If you're in Queensland, then depending on where you are, we have had frogs flown into us. We sort of restrict that now to cancer cases. So if you find a cancer case and you're anywhere in Queensland, definitely confine that animal and contact us, and we will try to actually get it flown up to Cairns. But otherwise, we help people interstate as well. So if somebody finds a sick frog and they can't find a wildlife carer to receive the animal, we might be able to give you instructions so that you can try to recover that animal and get it back to the wild. States have different regs, though. I think in New South Wales, once it goes into a rehab system, it does not go back to the wild. It actually goes to a licensed keeper. So different states have different rules about that. But certainly any frog that's got lumps on it, that was really great if people can contact us, because if it is a cancer case, we definitely want to get hold of it for the project that we're working on with cancer. Frogs that end up in the loo, if you're talking about a suburban house and frogs have ended up in the loo, that is not a good place for them, because the chemicals that are normally used to clean toilets have residues which could contaminate the frogs, as well as the fact that E. coli is a major pathogen that is definitely present in a loo. That's, I guess, why a lot of these toilet cleaning products are so strong. But otherwise, they go in there because it's a safe place for them. They can hide from the predators. They've got access to water. Sometimes, though, they get lazy and they don't bother to go back outside. So if you've got two frogs in the toilet, one of them could actually eat the other one. So they can be cannibalistic at times. But normally, if it's in your house, then you have to relocate it back outside. But if it's in a regional area where you've got an outhouse and that sort of thing, if the frog's not bothering anybody, leave it there. It's safer for it to be there than it is out in the trees. And be careful. Don't use these whatever cleaning products that you get at the supermarket. Just use vinegar or baking soda, and that will clean the loo without actually introducing more chemicals into the system downstream. Any other questions that people have? I think we've got.
I haven't really got anything inspiring happening there.
That's right. I mean, people, actually, can you put our website address on the screen somehow? And people
yeah, I can definitely do that. Give me 1 second. Let's copy that.
People can go to that and they can contact us if
And
they've got questions.
I'm gonna pasted in the comments here, so hopefully that goes to most places that we're streaming. I'm just
Okay.
gonna
I
hit
think
create banner.
I'm not sure if you need the www in there or not.
I believe
Definitely.
yours is that's taken straight from your Frog Safe
Oh, okay.
website.
Oh, okay.
And
All right.
that's the
Because when
address.
I
If
go to it,
people
it's
want to
www.
find out more, contact Deborah via that
Yep.
page.
Yep, that's
And
Suzanne's question there. Go into the cane toad section in the website, and you'll see photographs and descriptions of how to tell the difference between frogs and toads. There are definitely differences. And there are ground dwelling frogs as well, which often are mistaken for cane toads, but they're actually ground dwelling frogs. So just go into the cane toad section. Oh, you're in the health section
Yep.
there.
Where's the cane toad? Oh, yeah,
There you
right
go.
there.
That's
Big
it.
bold letters where I wouldn't see it. So there's the
yeah,
cane
it's,
toad section for those who are looking. Just follow that down. What's written on the screen, or if you look in the description for wherever this video is being posted, I believe most places should have it. I think things like Instagram are not quite up to speed yet, but most places, I think just about everywhere else has some form of a comment. If not, you can always, just write it down. It's right there. Pull out the old pen and paper, or type it out on your phone or whatever. Frogsafe.org.au. That's all you should really need to type into any search engine. And of course, you can contact Deborah via the contacts page. All the various links and whatnot available there. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add or get into there, Oliver? You've been a bit quiet there. Sorry, mate. We've all just been blabbermouthing so much. We might let you get a word in.
I can be very succinct for you because we're wrapping up. I'm really interested in talking a lot more about how we can address these seemingly innumerable issues and matters that we have going on, at least in our country, and finding ways that we can be creative in addressing these changes, be fun, be funny, and be effective as well. That's what I'm interested in doing. So if anyone is interested in doing any of that, reach out, and I'm always keen to talk about the best way of action and then actually taking action on that. And that's all I really have to say to wrap things up, at least on my end.
And you can contact myself or Oliver via this email address, nqfreedomnetwork, all one word, @protonmail.com. Anybody who's keen to get involved and help out in any of these things, whether it's the Frog Safe or anyone else that we've interviewed and worked with. If you want to get involved in some of the other action groups around town, I know quite a few people who've got various different action groups, from Fluoride to My Place and the Common Law. There's a lot of people doing a lot of good work there. If you want to get involved in any of those groups, give me a call. And that's obviously for the Townsville sort of North Queensland region, but I'm sure there's plenty of other people in your local areas that are doing similar things. Like I think My Places are popping up everywhere across the country, to the point where mainstream media are doing hit pieces on them. That just shows you how effective they really are, and just how much the forces that be are worried that groups of people are gathering to work against their tyranny.
I must say something on that. If the situation was hopeless, their propaganda, or no, how does it quote go? It's like if their propaganda was if like the situation was hopeless, then they wouldn't be putting out as much propaganda as they're putting out,
Oh yeah. They wouldn't be trying so hard if they wouldn't need mis and disinformation bills if people weren't waking up in droves.
In droves.
Yeah, isn't that amazing that over 23,000 comments on that thing, and they still haven't withdrawn it? Anyway, yeah. No, thank you so much for having me on this evening, Mark. Thanks
no
for
worries.
It's
always a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks.
Next time you got something, just let us know.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
So I might take a moment to say good day to our Patreons. You know, some amazing people: Jeannie, Lee, Jennifer, Gaza, Mark, Carla, and Karina. Our monthly donors who are, you know, helping to keep us alive. And if you want to become a Patreon, just follow the link here. And it is also in the comments section down below. Of course, give us a like and a thumbs up and all that sort of stuff. It helps get these programs out to the masses a little bit more and break some of them algorithms. Thanks heaps to everybody who's been commenting profusely through this and, you know, keeping that community engagement going. It's very awesome. Sorry, I've been a bit neglectful, so I'm going to quickly throw all these last comments in there. While is there anything else anybody would like to add while I throw these last few comments in?
I think, Oliver, if you still have any spare copies of that book, I'll never read it if I have to go online to read it. I like to read physical books. So if you have an extra copy of The Art of War, please send it to me.
Oh, okay, sure. I tend to always have copies that I'm dishing out to people left, right, and center.
Yeah.
So yeah, next time I see
you, you talked about a link on the internet, but I can't. I spend so much time on the damn internet anyway.
I know, yeah. Me too. I prefer actual books.
I prefer to read away from the computer. That was an interesting
run out of legs.
comment there that just came through there. That helicopters overhead seem to be a problem for a lot of new age people as well. They're doing a live program and this chopper shows up. Like, what?
Well, we live in an you know, heavy militarized area here, so I'm actually amazed we haven't had more choppers flying over, to be honest. Now, from time to time, I can even hear machine gun fire from the distance. So
let's keep it at the distance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I hope they're pointing it away from my house.
From the freaking population, yeah.
Too much. So, but anyway, thanks again for doing the program with us, and I hope. Well, I guess if people are still signed on, then they must be enjoying what they're hearing. Otherwise, they just would have dropped out a long time ago. So,
yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for attending.
No, all good. And we'll be back again Sunday for another fail of the week, people. 3 o'clock Queensland time, which is, I believe, 4 o'clock Southerner time. And don't ask me about the rest of the country. I have enough trouble trying to figure out what time it is right now and where I need to be. So if you can figure that out from there, that'd be awesome, guys. Thank you all very much for watching. Thank you for coming on, Deborah, and sharing all your information about frogs. Thanks heaps for jumping back on board, Oliver. We hope to see you a little bit more often. You want to join us for Fail of the Week on Sunday, or you got some party plans on?
I think there might be a few party plans going on with some books of mine and some dead people of the past that I'll be conversing with.
Wow, you really know how to party, don't you, mate?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I get rowdy with my books.
No worries, man. Well, hopefully you can still turn the pages by the end of it.
Yeah. Oh, dear. All righty. Good
night.
Then.
Well, good night, everybody. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you on Sunday for Fail of the Week, episode 11. I might leave you out with a little message here from my good mate, Ben.
At 12 Arrows, you're learning coordination. You're obviously getting your fitness up. You're learning things that might get you out of a little bit of trouble one day. Most of all, you are building resilience within your own self. You're growing fortitude within your own mind. The I can after 10,000 I can'ts is the thing that you're after. If you're a little older, younger, maybe feel like you can't quite get into martial arts, this is probably the place for you. Everybody here is quite easygoing. If now you think is the time, come on down, give us a shot. But I don't just sell you anything, I sell you a product I believe in.
We'll be getting back into it in the New Year's. Ben is an amazing instructor, and and it's not just martial arts. We do meditation and breath work and all that sort of stuff. Oliver's been there. He had a great time.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll get him back at some point when he got some time himself to jump back in and punch the hell out of some things. It's always good for anger management, I find.
There's actually Patricia's got I was just scrolling up there. Patricia's got she wants to know the name of the website. It was the website of the was it that Royal Commission on Natural Disasters. So she searches for that Royal Commission on Natural Disasters. That'll bring up the bushfires inquiry, and then just go to submissions and search for Frog Safe, and it'll bring up our submission, and you can read up about well, not only the other comments that we had, but also the geoengineering.
I think I found it here. If this is the right one, I'm just going to post it here into the comments section, and we can create a banner and add the banner and bring that up there. So I believe that is the right one. I'm just having a quick squeeze.
Yeah, that should be it.
Let me share that screen. It should be looking something like this. Letters patent, report.
Should be submissions as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Where are the submissions usually?
Hey guys, I might need to get going.
Nah, that's all right, mate. Well, I think we'll leave it there. Have a look around, people. See if you can find it. If you can find Deborah's submission, email it in, and we'll go from there. Other than that, thank you all very much for watching. It has been an amazing experience as always, and thank you very much for coming on board, Deborah. And we will see you again in the new year.
Cool.
See you, Oliver.
See you, Deborah.
See you, Mark.
See you guys.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks.